Hey everybody, Eddie Heinzelman here. Thank you for tuning in again to my next lesson in slide guitar. If you didn't watch the first one, please go check that one out because I talk about choosing slide material, I talk about which finger to wear your slide on, and just give a brief introduction. Today we're going to dig in a little deeper. We're going to talk about playing slide in standard tuning. Now a lot of people will talk about playing slide in open tunings like open G and open E. We'll talk about those later. One of the things I often do is play slide in standard tuning because I'm usually the only guitar player in the band, and that way I can cover a whole bunch of different parts and play slide. Some other players that play slide in standard tuning are Warren Haynes, Dwayne Allman, Mark Ford, Gary Rosington. The one thing about standard tuning, of course, is that you don't have the same options when it comes to chords. In an open tuning, usually all of the strings are tuned to an open chord, so you get all 6 strings that you can play as chord tones with your slide as you lay them across the frets. In standard tuning, you only have a couple different options for playing chords. The first option is major chords will be found on strings 2, 3, and 4. When we play 2, 3, and 4 open, that is an open G major chord. If we move that up 2 frets, it's an A. And what you'll see is it follows this bar chord shape. So if you're used to this bar chord, this would be a C major bar chord. The root is on the 5th string, C. It's also an octave higher on the 3rd string right here. You're going to put your slide right above the 5th fret, and that is a C major chord. On the 7th fret, it's a D major chord. 9th fret is an E major. When you get to the 12th fret, you're back at G and it starts over again. So that's the only place in a standard tuned guitar that you can play a 3-note chord with a slide, basically, and have it all line up across the fret. Now, for minor chords, the only place you can do that is on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings. So the same thing kind of goes. Now, the root is going to be on your 1st string. And this is going to be the relative minor to the majors we just played. If I play C major, the minor chord on that same fret, the 5th fret, is going to be A minor. And that's the 3rd, the 5th, and the root of the chord. 7th fret is B minor. C sharp minor. E minor. Those are really your only options for 3-note chords. Now you can certainly play 2 notes at a time, and you can outline chord tones, the 7s and the 3rds in different ways. The other thing about standard tuning compared to open tunings is you don't have to relearn the fretboard. If you've been playing guitar for a while, then you know what you're used to seeing as far as the way a guitar is tuned and how the notes lie on a neck. If you're familiar with the pentatonic pattern, your other bar chord shapes, etc. You don't have to relearn those to play slide in standard tuning. So let's talk a little bit more about another technique that you will have to possibly do, and this isn't regarding the tuning, it's regarding the guitar. This particular guitar actually has a 9.5-inch radius. And what do I mean by the radius? Well, that's the curvature of the neck. This is a 9.5-inch circle, basically contour of the neck and the fretboard. Early vintage Fender guitars have a 7.5-inch radius. This is a 9.5. A lot of Gibson guitars have a 12-inch radius. There are guitars with 16 and even higher radiuses than that. The higher up the number, the flatter the circle or the flatter the guitar neck. I like to play slide on this guitar with the 9.5-inch radius. Here's the thing, if you're playing something like this, then there's one suggestion I have for you. When you play the 1st string and the 6th string, you're going to have to tilt your slide just a little bit based on how you have your guitar set up. Unlike lap steel or pedal steel or dobros, guitars, when they have a curved radius, the strings follow that curve. That typically means that the 1st string and the 6th string especially are usually a little lower than the other strings on the guitar. So, as an example, if I play these two notes together, second string and the first string, if I leave my slide straight across that second string, you can hear the first note just fizzles out. There's nothing there. So, because my first string is a little bit lower than my second string. Now, if I press down on the second string, I can do that. When you're playing the first string, what you're going to typically do is tilt your slide down below the neck a little bit. And then again, if you want to play the two notes together with the first string, you'll press down on the second string a little bit. And the same thing goes with the sixth string. When you hit the sixth string, you may not want to play just flat across and hit the fifth string, so tilt your slide up a little bit across the top of the neck as well. Now the sixth string is a thicker string, and so it's easy to get a little bit of that fret noise. The next thing I want to talk about is vibrato. Vibrato is a great technique to add to your playing. It actually helps you do three things. Number one, it helps your intonation. Number two, it helps add expressiveness to your playing. And number three, it helps sustain the notes. When you do vibrato, you're not going to want to do a real wide vibrato, make it really swimmy, kind of pitch vibrato. It doesn't have to be fast, but short strokes. And what you can see is when you slide into a note, it will help you with that intonation a little bit. Then with sustain, here's a note with no vibrato. You can hear how it dies out. Here's with vibrato. It certainly helps your note last longer and sustain more. So let's talk about a few more songs that use standard tuning. At the beginning of this piece was my little mock-up. It's not the exact same thing, but in the style of Dreams. It's basically in the key of D, chords go to C, and what Duane Allman does is use standard tuning to go through the different chord changes, shapes, and then the D scale. You can do something like that. I'm using mainly the D pentatonic, and then I'm using this D bar chord. Muting becomes very important in standard tuning. Another thing is, for example, when I first heard the song Tush by ZZ Top. That whole solo is basically using standard tuning for the most part and playing over the chords. So a lot of that, again, you're playing a G chord, sliding into that major third on the second string. And you can play the flat 7. When it goes to the C chord, Play it at the 5th fret. That at the 3rd fret outlines its 2 notes, 2nd and 3rd string. It basically outlines the C9 or C7 with a 9 chord. And then you can go back to this G lick. Either way, you can do an open string pull off from the major 3rd, or you can do slide into the 3rd down to the root. Then the next thing you can do is on the D chord, that D is just the chord. Again, sliding into the 3rd. The C. Then the root. Flat 7. 6. Flat 6. 5. So again, I hope you like this lesson. That is an introduction to using slide in standard tuning. The next video that's coming up, I'm going to show you how to play the song Went for a Ride, which is the song I put in the first video right at the end. And I'm going to show you how to play that in standard tuning and open G tuning. And then that will segue us into the next video beyond, where we talk about open G. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. Share with your friends, hit the subscribe button, and as always, stay tuned.